Welcome to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. I'm your host, Asher, and our guest today is Courtney and Alyssa, two incredible women I get to talk about failure today's with, and today's theme, we get to share their story around failure. So I'm looking forward to get to know both Alyssa and Courtney about their journey with failure and the things that they have overcame and some of the lessons they learned so they can share with everybody that's listening. So I will start off with Alyssa, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about what you specialize in, how you add value to the world, and who you being a hero to.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you, Asher. So what I specialize in is I'm a life and business coach, but instead of just doing strategy, which we could do a lot of, I like to deal in the inner work. So really changing energy fields, really moving energy, emotional intelligence. I love to do inner child work as well. So really taking a look at the past so we can make a clear way for the future from a strength of presence. So that could sound like a little bit of jumbo, but we can dive into that a bit if you'd like. And adding value, I think the biggest part too is really allowing and helping people find their way home to themselves. Because we live in a world and well, you need to be completed by that person or buying this thing or this job. But really, when we come home to ourselves, then we can go anywhere and we can achieve our dreams and we can really come from a place of I am worthy versus I need something else to help me.
Mm.
So I love your question too, who am I a hero to? And I think the biggest part of being the hero is allowing people to see the hero in themselves. And if I can be that mirror and that reflection for people, then that's what I strive to be.
That was powerful. Not everybody answer all three questions straight out the back. Some people kind of pick between, but appreciate you sharing all three of them. What about you,
Oh.
Courtney?
Yeah, so this is just like a general intro you're asking for, right?
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, awesome. So, my name is Courtney. I am an intuitive healer based in San Francisco, trained as an acupuncturist. I still offer acupuncture. Also trained as a body worker for many years. And then I got into psychic work, trained doing psychic work for a few years. And so now my service sort of combines all those things. I work with people in the office, hands-on work. I work with people remotely, and we do more of the intuitive healing. I really use the body as our compass. And so I work with a lot of people who are in pain, and we use that pain to sort of figure out what's blocked or what needs to be moved, what needs to see we say hello to. Yeah, I think the body has all the answers. So it's a lot of somatic healing. That's kind of a jam.
Mm. You guys are synced up pretty good here. I'm excited
Beautiful.
about the journey, of course. But we're gonna jump into your story, don't mind, Alyssa. So we're gonna talk about failure itself and your kind of your relationship with failure, some of the stuff that you've experienced that you want to start with sharing that can help
Mm,
somebody see the world differently right now.
yeah, well, I am a poster child in failing health. That is where I thrive. That is where I have been at the deepest, most in pain for very long periods of time, having moments of paralysis, and then seeking outside and going to I'm going to pause a little and go back because the failure was also it contributed. I wrote down a few points is coming out of high school, I was going for the Olympics. I was an athlete, I was top academically. My health got in the way. So failed
Mm.
there. I couldn't do there. I couldn't reach my dreams. Um, Going to university, getting a kinesiology degree, athletic therapy. I came out of that having major injuries again, concussions and spinal injuries. So I couldn't go into that realm of work. So big failure. Like I couldn't use my degree, which I had studied for in that time. I took a break. So it was 6 years of my life that I got caught up in stories and saying, oh, I wasted that. I failed.
Mm.
And then coming into different jobs in restaurant, I didn't get promoted in hospitality. I did different sales jobs. I transferred over into life insurance sales too and progressed really quick. And then my health started failing again. So going on disability, not being able to like cover my rent, having to downsize. And really in that time, I know I really condensed all of that, but in that time, my health was a roller coaster because what I had done and what lots of people do is we attach our worth and our value to what we're producing externally. So I couldn't make money. I couldn't go out and have fun. I couldn't do I couldn't even clean the house because of the pain and what was happening in my body. So really seeing myself as just failing at life in general. And my relationship with that was just caught up in cycles and loops of shame and guilt and, well, you should have, or you shouldn't have. So really keeping myself in a place of suffering until there were some moments of shifts. And we can go into that now or hold off for it, but there were huge shifts, but it all came from me internally and had nothing to do with things around me.
Wow, I feel like, when Courtney said she does acupuncture, and I was thinking the whole time when you was talking about your pain and the stuff you went through, I was thinking about what was going through your mind right now, Courtney, when you hear about all her pain and stuff. What was going through your mind?
The main thing, honestly, was just a lot of compassion. That's a lot of suffering. I can really feel how much suffering you've walked. And ultimately, I believe that suffering is our sort of gateway to God or the divinity or oneness or whatever you want to call it. And so I want to hear more of your story and hear how that ended up. But yeah, it's just a lot of suffering.
I do want to hear more about your story, Alyssa, if you don't mind. Continue. How you progressed through that.
Yeah, well, yes, and thank you for the acknowledgement of that, Courtney. It's there's something really special about when you're with people who have chronic pain, and I got diagnosed with chronic pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, just you're going to be that way forever, right? Because it's a mystery in the medical world when these different conditions come up, and I've had made different spinal surgeries and different trying to correct it in those ways. But ultimately, do you want to hear healing already, or do you want to hear more about kind of the experience of being down in the depths of pain and what it was like?
What you feeling saying right now? What do you feel like sharing? Yeah.
I don't know. It's a loaded story, so I want to make sure I'm going with the way you want. But yeah, let's go. Let's go more into the depths. Are you okay with that? Yeah. Yeah. So really, I'll kind of go alongside my adventure and my journey there is as children, we don't fail at things, right? We just continually learn and we continually explore. Like we fall down, we get up, we learn to walk, we learn to talk. There's no pressure. But what I was talking about before, getting looped into cycles of shame, cycles of guilt, and really keeping that energy trapped in my body. So unknowingly adding to well, not adding, but taking away from my ability to heal because I was keeping all this energy stuck in my body. So really going into, I was getting worse and I didn't know why. So I had major spinal surgery in Germany in 2015. And that's when I made a career shift into insurance sales, and I excelled and life was great. And I was going back to the gym. I was pain-free for about 6 months until my life started going downhill in a major way again. And fast forward, well, we can stay there a little. And then there was also different mind things coming up. Like I was having trouble thinking. I had major anxiety. I was depressed and I didn't know how to get better. And I ate right. I exercised right. At least I told myself those things, that I was doing everything that I could and I was seeing specialists. But in my mind, I was just beating myself up over and over again, saying it shouldn't be this way, just really arguing with the reality of the situation. And I love Byron Katie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work, but she says that all suffering is created in the mind. Yeah. Pain is temporary.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Alyssa. No, my curiosity kind of sparks around. I'm curious to know exactly when you went through that journey, what did that take you to? Like, what destination did you land into? Like, wow, all of this for this, right? You kind of recognize, start connecting that around this journey, take you to what destination that we want to celebrate.
Yeah, let's talk about that. There were some major shifts in this journey. And actually, while I was sick and on disability, not able to work, I met my husband and got married. I had 3 children. So life is full of surprises, and still being in the depth of that, like I couldn't I needed help full time with my children. I couldn't lift them. I couldn't carry them. We had to downsize into a tiny apartment because I wasn't able to keep a house. So lots of changes going on, like beautiful and awful and painful, and really getting down into the depths of it. And I had to ask myself in those moments, especially when I had my first child, and just reflecting on the life that I had, is, do I want my children to have the same life as I do? And what can I do differently? Who do I have to become to give them a different life? So this is where my relationship with failure started to change, right? Because I've been beating myself up so much for what I haven't done or what I shouldn't do. So really, there's one quote that always stuck with me about failure. And if you're not failing, you're not doing anything.
Mm.
So really a shift into, oh my goodness, like, what can I release? How can I release all these stories, all these thoughts, all this stuck energy? And what did I actually learn from each of those moments? So really coming into different ahas. And then after my second child was born, I had to go back for major surgery. We actually found what was wrong. And I had a major infection. I am my own case study in the world. The prosthesis that was put in 2015 was infected. But with the type of bacterial infection it should not have stayed in my system. So it's a little crazy. It's a weird story, which I love. Even at the same time I went through it, it was excruciating. It was painful. And so really coming out of that and having the ability to get my health back. And coming out of that surgery too, it was redoing my spine, cutting out different muscle, doing bacterial washouts, on PICC line IV, daily treatments for 4 months, and then other medication after. And coming out of that, and I was good for a bit, but then I plateaued again. So the question that I actually had to ask myself coming out of that was, do I actually want to get better?
Mm.
And I had to have this internal dialogue, because for me, it was, being sick was now safe. It was safe because I was used to being bedridden. I was used to not having responsibility of a job or going out because I wasn't able to do those things. So now thinking about having a normal life, even taking my kids for a walk outside, which I hadn't been able to do, was scary. And I was scared that I was going to fail them in some way, or that I'd fail at work again. So really having to shift my entire relationship with failure, and also fear. I know I'm kind of going into the next day a little bit with the fear topic as well, but yeah, big shifts there and lots of releasing energy, but then making the decision too that this is where I want to go. Like it's more scary for me to stay stuck where I was, to stay sick. So really allowing myself to get uncomfortable, to go into that area. And that's when magic started happening. And that's when I shifted into these careers and actually accepted my story and started loving myself for my journey. Not just saying, oh, you should have done better, or you should have made different decisions, or this shouldn't have happened to you. It was, my journey is such a gift. And how are those gifts showing up in my life right now? And that changed everything for me.
We're not gonna give away the magic yet. We're gonna save the magic, so we're gonna keep them holding on for a bit. I want to tap into Courtney's mind right now. I'm curious to know, in your thought universe right now, Courtney, what is playing out for you right now?
Well, there's a couple things. I'm real curious about the root cause of everything Alyssa went through. You know, how to ferret that out. There's so many possible avenues, and I'm curious what she explored and what that exploration was like. And I'm also just sort of noodling on this word failure in the context of the journey she shared, because it doesn't feel like failure. It feels like really rough circumstances. And I think sometimes the word failure can, to me, I guess I'm noticing it feels almost like a judgment. And I'm not wanting her to put that judgment on herself for this path she's walked. You know, sometimes more gracefully, sometimes less gracefully, I'm sure, but with such courage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. But what about you, Courtney? How do you view failure in your own life?
Yeah.
My failure. Okay. Well, so as I mentioned, I'm an acupuncturist in San Francisco. I've been doing body work for over 20 years. And I graduated, let's see, massage school in 2004, acupuncture school in 2012. I remember my first acupuncturist back in Philadelphia in like 2007. She told me, when you're building a practice, you'll need another job part-time for the first 3 years. She gave me the formula. She said, it takes 3 years to build a practice. She said, I did cocktail waitressing. You're going to need another stream of income while you build the practice. So I launched my practice in 2013, and I was, waiting tables also. So I built simultaneously while I was doing that. And by the time 2019 hit, my practice was bumping. I mean, you guys, I had full schedules. I was making a lot of good money. I had a lot of insurance patients from the Bay Area, tech companies that paid really well. I was no longer waiting tables. I really felt like I was sort of hitting my groove. Like, people would come to me and I kind of knew what I wanted to do with them. Like, when you're starting a practice, there's like, oh shit, this person is very complicated. I do not know how to help them. And I finally, in 2019, again, I was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing here. This feels good. And then 2020 was the next year. Big year. I ended up closing my practice for about 4 months because of the shelter in place. And when I reopened, people didn't really come back. A lot of people had moved from the Bay Area. A lot of people were afraid of in-person medical treatments. It just, my practice really shifted then. And I had a home practice. I moved my home and I moved my practice with it. I moved to a different neighborhood, and that also made it harder for people to see me as someone accessible who they wanted to reach out to. And so here comes the failure part. I decided to work with a coach. And I decided to work with a coach because I really believe in coaching as a concept. I really believe in doing the inner work, having someone guide you through the logistics, having someone be a sounding board for your aspirations and your plans. And this coach was someone my best friend really loved. They knew each other professionally in kind of a different capacity, but this woman had just launched a coaching practice, and my friend was going to work with her. And so I decided to work with her too. It was very expensive because coaching is very expensive. So I paid about, I think I signed on for like a $9,000 year-long coaching contract. And I don't want to point fingers because I made all the decisions, but in the process of working with this person, I drove my practice completely into the ground. Like, whatever remnants of a strong practice I had disintegrated. Her idea of a practice was very much package-based rather than session-based. And she really wanted me to get away from this sort of like charge for your time model, which was a good goal. I feel a little trapped sometimes in my work because it is very much like, for every hour I'm with someone, I make this much money. If I'm sick, if something happens, there's no, disability for single self-employed practitioners. Like, I'm just out if I don't get to work with people that way. So I understand why she made that move. But she wanted me to sell these really high ticket packages. And so all of a sudden, you could only work with me if you were ready to spend $6,000, right? And she had me doing these long introductory sessions, like 4 or 5 hours, valued at like $2,000. Was this deep dive into everyone, interesting idea, maybe would have taken off. The problem is I developed such a strong network in San Francisco of people who wanted to refer their friends to me. And this was my main source of new patients, right? Marketing is so hard in my field, but I had this great word of mouth referral network from my patients, from coaches and therapists I knew in the area, from physical therapists, chiropractors. But they knew me in a certain capacity. And so they'd send me, oh, Kendra wants help with menopause. And Kendra would be like, hey, can you help me? And I was like, yes, for $6,000, I can help you with your menopause. And Kendra would be like, forget it. I'm going to go to the acupuncturist down the street who charges a much more reasonable amount. And I don't have to commit to this huge time and money expenditure. And so a lot of those referrals just left, right? And all of a sudden my referral banks dried up. I was not getting any more word of mouth referrals. I was not really getting people for these big ticket packages because I wasn't sure where to market them, right? And so my practice literally just dried up. I was down to treating a few people a week, whereas normally I'd like to treat about 25 or 30 people a week. And I ended up firing that coach, not completing the contract. I think a few months before we were meant to end, I said, look, this really isn't working. I don't like what's happening in my practice. And I had to start from the ground up. And so I think of it as a failure because I basically built my practice the way you're supposed to over time, and then, trampled it to the ground. And now I'm back in the building practice, which is very humbling. I've been in practice now. Again, I've been doing bodywork for over 20 years. I've been doing acupuncture for, I guess, about 11 years now. And I'm back in that part of the practice where you really need to have another job because it just takes time to build. It's just how it works. You just have to make network connections with other people. You have to establish who you are and what you do. And I've opened this new office in a new neighborhood, so I have to get to know people around here. I think San Francisco has really gone through a big change since the pandemic. So a lot of my former patients aren't around anymore. So it's just sort of figuring out once again, and here's the real failure. This is like the core of it for me, is I think this coach got me so focused on money. She was so interested in selling these big ticket items. And I lost sight of the fact that I don't do what I do for money. I need money to work in San Francisco, a very expensive city. I do what I do because I want to be of service to people. I want to be a part of people's healing journeys. And somehow I totally lost sight of that. And I built a business that made healing inaccessible to people. And that is a failure. That is a huge failure in my book. Losing your North Star, losing that real spiritual compass. And part of my recovery from that failure has been remembering that we do this work to be of service to others and to add value to their life. And there are a lot of ways to do that. And there are a lot of ways to do that and still be financially sustainable. And I'm exploring a lot of different ways to do that don't feel as like salesy and inauthentic as what I was doing felt to me.
That is an incredible story, by the way, Courtney. And if somebody's listening to you right now, that's probably looking into the same kind of profession as you, and you want them to take something to walk away with right now and implement, what would that be from your story, your lesson that you learned from this experience?
Well, I'll go back to the fact that I think coaching can be very valuable, but the best coaches I know, I've worked with quite a few of them, a lot of them really bad, frankly, but I'm thinking of one in particular who was amazing. And I think the best coaches lead you back to your own truth. So I think if you're going to work with anyone, a coach, a therapist, a career mentor, if you want to build a practice, work with people who really bring you back to yourself and your truth over and over again, because your truth is what you want to build something on, not someone else's truth.
Bingo. I see you shaking your head here, Alice. What are you thinking?
I love that little plug at the end there. I think that's beautiful. And just really want to take a moment to actually see you in your journey and see the ups and downs and feel too, there still feels like there's lots of energy around that situation. And I want to honor that for what it is, right? It's frustrating. It's super frustrating, especially when you feel like it shouldn't be happening, right?
Totally.
But I think Asher and I were talking about before we hopped on with you, and I love to, if you're okay with it, Asher, just a question for her. Assuming, coming from the lens of life always has your best interest in mind, the universe wants to give you everything that you desire, what would it be trying to show you with this experience?
Great question. I hold that belief as well. And it's a hard question to answer in this experience. I think a part of me harbored this idea that I could be the kind of person this coach was trying to turn me into, selling these really high ticket packages and not working a whole ton, doing a lot of remote work and automating a lot of what I do. And I think the universe was really reminding me that one of my greatest gifts in this lifetime is working with people one-on-one. And yes, it can be limiting. And yes, I can feel trapped sometimes. And yes, it can be scary to rely on that kind of income. But that is totally my gift. And it felt like a really important sort of like stern nudge back into my place. That I am very good in the treatment room, and I need to embrace that and maybe expand beyond that, but never leave that behind.
Yeah, just honoring that, because it sounds too like things could have gone different ways, but it sounds too that you have come back to your truth. And yeah, it took some experimentation, it took some failure, but you came back to it. I think that's really powerful to be able to hold that and to come back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that reflection.
And what shows up for me too is, Courtney, I think you're in the experience economy where you gotta touch them. You gotta be able to create the experience when you create the experience from that's what give you more insight, more foresight. And I think when that's not there, then I feel like you're not living your truth, which is probably you gotta touch people physically to kind of change your energy. That's what I'm seeing right now too.
Yeah, I think that's largely true. I mean, again, I finished psychic school during the pandemic, and so I've been doing more psychic work also. And it's so interesting. I had a friend say, your task with psychic work is to touch people with your words, to touch them energetically. And I think that's the transition. It's like what you're saying, like my job is to touch people, but it doesn't always have to be with my hands. There's different ways you can touch a person, but that has to be the core pillar of what I do is touch people in some way.
Wow. I'm ready for the magic now, Alyssa.
Magic. Okay. So coming off of mine, oh, I got really caught up in your story, Courtney. That was beautiful. I just want to honor you too for sharing vulnerably and courageously. It was so beautiful and touching so many people's lives, I'm sure. So coming back to mine and being kind of into depths, and we were coming out of my major surgery, right? Like things were looking up, things were getting better. And I had after that there was, the crab bucket mentality came out. I was reaching out, I was better, I was creating a new life for myself, and there were people around me that were trying to claw me back down, and there was lots of family drama going on. And so having that while having at that point, it was my 9-month-old postpartum and a 2-year-old coming out of major surgery, and then 6 months after major surgery, getting pregnant with my third. When you feel better, you do different things, right? It's fun again. So really coming to a place too where I was scared again, and having that conversation with myself. But do I actually want to get better? But now I'm caught up in stories, and I'm scared that my body can't hold a baby or grow, and coming into another new world where just touching on my other pregnancies, they were extremely painful. This one in a different way, because this way it was scars stretching. But otherwise it was beautiful. And there's some beautiful research there too about pregnancy and the way that babies help heal your body with the stem cells, and just the way that your body is just so filled with blood and filled with life, and there's such healing power in that. And I started searching and searching, and I knew that I wanted to get my story across. I knew that it was powerful. I knew that it was something that would help people, because I had been to the depths in so many different ways, also in different relationships that I were in that were very abusive and unhealthy, and coming to where I was now, and not knowing how to share it. So looking online, and I signed up for some different coaching programs, different things like that. And then I found one program. It's with Alyssa and the Institute of Coaching Mastery. That's where I did kind of it's a year-long intensive training program, focusing really on healing work, inner work, learning how to transform, but from the inside out, so you completely change your life. Not just different strategies or tactics, but like Courtney said, really honing into what my truth is, what my journey is, and finding my voice again. And it's not through thinking that you're broken and you need healing. We don't. None of us are broken. But what we have layers of conditioning that have taken us away from our path. So I was embarking on that journey. And through that journey too, as I went through the year doing all this work, healing so many different layers and levels and seeing different parts of me, really coming to love who I was and seeing how in so many ways through my life, I had been doing my best to change who I was, to transform, to be this for this person, to be that for that person, really because I didn't like myself. Stemming from, and that's stemmed like all these different health problems and coming from like people pleasing and living small and so many things that are really common in our society where we put ourselves down to please others or to make sure other people feel comfortable. So that was really circulating me for the dis-ease, right? That was in my body. So going through that healing work, and at the same time as I was healing, I felt so good and I worked through so many levels as I was going through that program. But at the same time, my body was also declining in a way. So I'd actually got an autoimmune disease too, Graves' disease, hyperthyroidism that started that year. And it was wild. It was exhausting. There were such hormonal changes. It was a trip. And also I had just had my third baby in January of that year, which that year would have been last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so January started the course later. That January I went through the whole course with my baby on me. And then also getting all these symptoms increasing and finally finding out what it was in fall of that year, going on typical medication, but also deciding too that my health was my responsibility and I wanted to do it a different way. So I supplement too with osteopathy appointments and chiropractor to really do the body work side of things. And then I also went into naturopathic medicine for the help of that type of doctor and really supporting me. So noticing too with different supplements and different herbal remedies that I was supported. I really wanted to go off my medication. And coming up, here we're getting into some more aha moments. So coming up into January of this past year, going to my doctor and saying, there's other stuff going on. So really starting to use my voice and my inner knowing and my trust in my body, because that is what I've been working on all year long. Trusting myself and trusting my knowing and really connecting with my body versus outsourcing and saying, well, what do you think? So coming to that and saying, there's something wrong. I still have these symptoms. They're not related to hyperthyroidism. Those levels are level, like they're level, they're good for the most part. So really coming in to treat my vagus nerve then, and that I did on my own through different types of breathing techniques, body positions, icing, like variety of different things, because it was common to have major abdominal surgery and then have your vagus nerve, and it's through stress as well in different life situations that it does go out of whack and it does affect your mind-body connection, which let me know if I'm just way off here, but from where we're going, but it is very prevalent these days to want to heal that and to really look at it because of the way that we have stress and different things in just our culture in general. So after that, I was able to go on and off my medication. But the real healing moment was when I received a coaching session and we did some really deep safety work, some inner child work, some safety, really me coming to a knowing of I've got me like this, I'm safe, like in my own skin. I know that I'm safe and I can keep myself safe. And from that day forward.
Are you an empath? Are you an empath?
An empath. I wouldn't say that I am an empath. I would say that there's a knowing that we can all develop on our own intuition, and we all have it. It's just in developing it. I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh no, it did. But I was just watching your energy flow right now, and I was noticing that, you know, when I recognize when people speak through the imagination eyes, like through their energy eyes, and I notice you do a lot of that when you speak. That means you're flowing with some kind of energy that oftentimes connects with people. So it makes me feel like there's a lot of healing in your work. I don't know if that's for what you do, but I can feel that when you speak about the way you look at things. I feel like there's an healing journey there. That maybe your work is in healing, so to speak.
Yeah. And really from that moment to that session, I've been off my medication. My levels are fine. So from a doctor telling me you need 2+ years or you're stuck with it your whole life for an autoimmune condition, and I can heal that in 4 or 5 months.
Mm.
And it's mind-blowing because it's not mainstream, but it shows how important your mind and your body is, that there is. And I have this very strong belief that your body is just a healing machine.
Mm.
Like all these myths about you get old and decrepit, those are all myths. Like your body is strong and capable depending on what you feed it, on what your environment is like, on how you treat it. But there's a way to get there and to find that knowing.
Especially when Courtney touch it. I mean, it's getting even more better when Courtney get to put her hands on it. It's like definitely get the healing more.
Yes.
I know we're set for time because you guys got running up against the hour here. But I really enjoyed your story, Alyssa. I wish you had more time to talk because there's more in your story I wanna like learn about and kind of poke into and kind of see what's there, what's in your journey. And also same with you, Courtney. You're definitely a triumph over that one situation to make it something powerful in your own life. And for the people that do listen about starting own business and see the hustle it takes and the struggle it takes, and sometimes you go to make a wrong turn and you gotta find a way back and find the right people to lead you back to. So appreciate you sharing that story as well. And if we gotta wrap up right now, kind of close out. If somebody hear your story right now, Alyssa, and they're like, "Oh my God, that was incredible. I would love to work with you. How can they work with you?"
I'm mostly an offline coach. So I do all of my work by word of mouth, by referral. I'm starting to develop just my Instagram feed with how to get a hold of me, testimonials, sharing podcasts. So that would probably be the best way. So my handle is at Van Alstyne Alyssa,
Ben
and that would be the
Einstein.
best way. And yeah,
Same question for you, Courtney. If somebody want you to touch them with your words or your hands, and they want to work with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, thanks for the prompt. My practice is called Courtney More Wellness. So you can find me at CourtneyMoreWellness.com. You can find me on Instagram at Courtney More Wellness, Facebook, Courtney More Wellness. If you're in San Francisco, come in for some physical touch. If you're not, I offer remote medicine readings. And I also just launched a 12-week program called The Liberated Body, which is really on that mind-body connection Alyssa's talking about. And really figuring out, okay, I've got shoulder pain that just won't go away. I've been to doctors, I ice it, I do PT. I'm ready to look at the emotions and the energy behind this. And so if anyone's really curious about that mind-body connection and ready to dive deep, I would love to be part of that process.
Excellent. And what is your biggest takeaway from this conversation, if you don't mind sharing, Courtney?
My biggest takeaway, what a nice question. Oh, I'm a little stuck on that crazy bacterial infection, Alyssa.
yeah.
Really fascinating. I'm going to be thinking about that one after this call for sure.
Well, you can, if you want to look it up, it's called a bilateral psoas abscess, if you want the real term,
Yeah.
if you're so curious.
It's a psoas issue. That's fascinating. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. You're welcome.
What about you, Alyssa? What's your biggest takeaway?
Oh, my biggest takeaway, I just really appreciate these platforms, and especially you, Asher, for setting up a platform where stories can be shared, because that there's connection in that, as we were talking about, and even just being able to relate to one person or someone, that you can have your dreams, you can have it all. There's just layers, right? That's as simple as that. And the universe and the world, they have your best interest in mind. We may not see it. We may be confused. We may need a guide, but it's there. And to really trust your knowing. And I think Courtney showed that so beautifully. Just trust your knowing. It's there for a reason.
I agree 100%. And sometimes the universe, looking out for your best interest. Sometimes it's sending you people that do stuff that drive you crazy. So if you had to share one or two things that people do that drive you crazy, if you don't mind sharing, what would that be?
I love this because I love the talk of triggers. And I think triggers are a beautiful gift because they're not what drives you crazy or drive what other people drive you crazy about. A trigger is so beautiful because it's already in you. It's just somebody knocking at the door for what's in you. And life just wants us to heal, right? It wants us to heal. It wants us to get free. And triggers are so beautiful if you work with them. because it's just something in you that needs healing, that's calling for attention. So if you're getting triggered by the same thing over and over again, it's just a calling to just look inward and say, oh, why is that trying to get my attention? What wisdom is here that I can take the edge off, that I can learn from this and heal myself and elevate so I don't have to do this again over and over.
That's
Beautiful.
powerful. You know what popped up for me too? I used to say this whenever time somebody pushed my button, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that button was there. So instead of me getting frustrated and pissed off, I'm like, thank you so much for pointing out that button for me. So now I get to go figure out how to
Yeah.
eliminate that button so nobody else can push it. Right? So I
Powerful.
can get rid of it. Yeah. So I just thought about that. I was like, yeah, so I stopped getting frustrated, pissed off with people. I'm like, so thank you so much for pointing that button out because I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
was the
You
person
look,
that showed up and you made me aware of it.
yeah. Yeah. I had one of my mentors, she says that everyone on earth is a soulmate. They're looking there to help you get free. So if you look at everyone else as a mirror, and if you do projection work, everyone else is my mirror helping me to get free. So if I, instead of pointing fingers outward, if I point them inwards and I say, what is this trying to teach me or reveal about myself? That's your next step to getting free.
Mhm.
That's so good.
Everybody's highest value is freedom. Courtney, curious about you. What is that one thing or two things when people do it drive you crazy?
Well, first thing that comes to mind is I really feel crazy when other people act like they know how I should live my life. And I've been noticing that more and more in my friend group lately. People have very strong opinions about how I or others need to be making decisions. And so perhaps I need to take a step back and see where I'm putting my own opinions on other people also.
Mm.
Beautiful. Such beautiful awareness.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I mean, I hate when people talk with while they're eating. That's crazy. I don't do that.
That's so fun.
Yeah, that's totally cool. Okay, so we're gonna respect everybody's time. And it was a pleasure listening to both of you guys talk about your journey, your story. And for the folks that are watching, I receive a lot today from both of you. Definitely the power of I just love when you speak with your powers there, Alyssa. The way you speak, the way you flow. I love that way. I love the way you flow. So I would definitely like to connect again with that kind of flow. Totally. And Courtney, you're powerful, my friend. Definitely. You recognize something that was like, yeah, never knew that again. So appreciate you sharing that. Any last word before we close out?
Just thank you. What an awesome vehicle you've created here. Thanks for inviting us.
You're welcome.
It's an honor.
All right, you tune in to Pandora's Awareness Podcast, a place where we collect stories and circulate life-changing wisdom. And with that, make it